Where does all the money go in Myanmar? Where does all the money come from in Myanmar? What does the government spend their money on? Hello everyone, it's Asian Anthony, and in this video, Myanmar and how the economy works. Now the GDP of Myanmar, according to Google and ChatGPT, is $83 billion. Now I know this is not actually true. I think that they're getting this figure by incorporating the black market into the GDP, which is, I think is a good idea. The debt in Myanmar is about $11.2 billion. And the annual repayment of this debt is about $700 million. But let's break down the GDP. 40 to 45% of the GDP comes from the service sector. What is the service sector? The service sector is basically when people walk into a shop, buy food, toys, stay at a hotel, they buy mobile data, normal things like that. And the service sector cannot expand unless we put more money into the pockets of the citizens of Myanmar. Next, we have 20 to 25% that comes from agriculture. Now, this is the rice, beans, corn, etc., etc. Myanmar has far more fertile land than its neighbors. This makes Myanmar an agricultural powerhouse. And the fact that Myanmar can feed itself without the world is a big reason why we haven't seen a total collapse in Myanmar. Now, once the conflict subsides, a lot of the agricultural land will be of far greater use because the agricultural land overlaps with the conflict zones. And then we have the last sector, which makes up about 20 to 35% of the GDP. This is the industrial or manufacturing sector. Now this is the sector that we need to watch closely because a lot of international companies left. We lost a lot of that revenue. And we still do get a lot of revenue from this sector. For example, Thailand depends on the natural gas that comes from Myanmar, okay? They depend on Myanmar. They need Myanmar. Also, you gotta realize that the government gets the money from natural gas goes directly to the government, okay? And then they spend a lot of that money on the military. But once there's no conflict anymore, the government will be able to spend more of that money on social services. So that is how the GDP is broken down. Let's talk about the debt. Now, the debt in Myanmar is about $11.2 billion. This is extremely small on a global level. This is basically just one rich person in Singapore can just come and just wipe out the debt. The problem is not the debt, it's the weak tax collection. It's hard to pay the debt in Myanmar because people aren't paying taxes properly for obvious reasons. There's a conflict going on and there's just not a lot of institutions to properly collect and check who is and who isn't paying taxes. But this is actually not a big deal because the debt actually is pretty low. Please remember that Myanmar generally runs a trade surplus with the world. This means that Myanmar sells more than Myanmar is buying, okay? This is great news. So why has Myanmar not totally collapsed? Well, Myanmar can feed itself. It doesn't need the world to feed itself. Myanmar has a trade surplus. Many countries wish they had a trade surplus. And also there's a secret ingredient, the black market. The black market is kind of hard to track, but this is like the secret sauce that is injecting new cash into the markets of Myanmar. And that is how the economy works in Myanmar.